Run, river, run, run through the hills. Run, river, run to the sea. Run, river, run to your place beneath the sun. Run, river, run over me.
Hey, this is Jan Lewis. Welcome to be my guest. Today we have back, what was it, about 3-4 years ago? Let's see, 215, it's 218, about
2015.
Yeah, about 4 or 5 years ago, we had Joe Bebo on, and he is a local author. And boy, has he written a lot of books since he was on the show. I mean, a lot. And they all have sort of a different flavor of them, too. He's going to tell you about not just one, not just two, but all of them. Welcome back, Joe.
Thank you. Good
Joe
to be here.
Joe's from Hudson. And the last time he was on the show, we were over at our temporary digs down the road, and he found us just fine at our new studio.
Yeah.
Joe, when did you start writing?
Well, I started writing years ago, probably 30 years ago. I just wrote for fun, and I would write something in a manuscript and make copies for my friends and send them out to my friends. And I would write and rewrite, and I loved these friends. They would keep reading every version of the book until I got it down to a nice tight plot. So I learned to write by writing over and over again, by rewriting.
Yeah.
And I published my first book in 2014, which we talked about.
Now the first one, we're going to show it to us, but what was the title of that one?
Lake, Land, and Liberty. I've got it right here.
I remember that cool cover you had designed. In fact, you've designed them all.
Well, I have a cover designer who I work with.
Yeah.
I give her a basic idea. Yeah, I give her the basic idea, and then she nails it every time.
Of Lake, Land, and Liberty. And what was that one about?
This is about the battle. It centers around the Battle of Plattsburgh in the War of 1812.
Yeah.
And no one knows about this battle, but it's very significant. 10,451 British regulars, the best troops in the world, elite regulars, Wellington's troops, from just defeating Napoleon in the Peninsular Wars. And they came, 10,000 of them attacked this little village of Plattsburgh, New York, in upstate New York on Lake Champlain. And at the time, there were only 3,000 defenders. Half of them were sick and convalescent. And the British ended up losing. And it's an inspiring story. It's about two boys who, because of their thirst for adventure and their desire to defend their country, they get involved in the war and then become heroes in the battle, which took place September 11, 1814.
Now that's September 11th. That's quite a day in our American history. A couple times now.
Yeah. So the victory led directly to the peace negotiations the next month. So it had a significant impact on the war. But then in December, the Battle of New Orleans was fought, and everyone forgot about Plattsburgh. Yeah. But it's an adventure story, a lot of action in adventure, and based on the actual events that took place. It's a unique story. So
what was the next book? Now that's the very first one. When I met you, that's the first one that came out. All right.
Family Legends, the Charbonneau.
The Charbonneau letter. All right. 1804, 1862.
Well, 1804. My father came home one day after talking to his great uncle, who was like 90 at the time, and he came home and said, "We're related to someone that was on the Lewis and Clark expedition." And we said, "Who?" And he said, "Charbonneau." None of us knew who Charbonneau was. And if you know your Lewis and Clark history, Charbonneau was the husband of Sacagawea, the famous Sacagawea. I guess he bought her in a card game, or bought her or won her in a card game. And so that kind of inspired me to look more into it. And I researched Lewis and Clark and read everything I could. It's an incredible story. Charbonneau's not really a likable character. My dad said, "Why did you make Charbonneau out to be such a bad guy?" And I said, "Dad, that's the way he really was." But it's an interesting story. The book's about a family that, like mine, is related to Charbonneau. And they have an heirloom, a family heirloom, a letter from William Clark commending Charbonneau. Now, Lewis and Clark wrote about everybody in the expedition. He didn't have a negative word to say about anybody except for Charbonneau. Yeah. He wasn't very likable. It makes a great character. So in the book, this fictional family is fighting to save their land and find this heirloom, the letter that was lost. And while the story goes on in the present, it flashes back to 1804 and the Lewis and Clark expedition, and really explores the relationship between the old French trapper, he's 47, and this young Indian maiden, 17, and explores their relationship together as they have that incredible adventure.
That came
with
out
Lewis
now.
and Clark.
That was 2015. No, when was that?
2015. It came
Okay,
out. Yeah.
2015. I remember that. Okay,
Yeah.
keep going. Boy,
So-
has he got a bunch of books.
So I love history,
Yeah.
and I read something or learn something that inspires me about history, and I think, what must that have been like?
Yeah,
And start,
sure.
the mind starts going, and I start writing.
Yeah.
The next, I also like science.
Oh, yes.
Now, the next book is a science-based thriller.
Lamp
it's-
of the Gods. Is this sci-fi?
It's sci-fi, but it's not fantasy. It's sci-fi that something could almost really happen.
That's the kind of sci-fi I like.
My-
Yeah, that it's not all fantasy, but that it could happen.
On my sci-fi books, my editor, who's a great guy, James O'Levy, no, I'm not saying it right, but he's out in Arizona. He's a great editor, and he always tells me, "Can that really happen? Can that really happen?" And this book is based on something innocent that happened that kind of inspired this book. My father had recently died, and I was in Google Maps satellite view, viewing my house. I viewed right down. I saw my family house, and in the front is my father's truck. Well, the house had been sold, and the truck was no longer there. So it must have been it wasn't a real-time satellite view. It must have been taken earlier, but my father was still alive. But it was like I was looking down from space back into the past. If you were on Jupiter and you could magnify the Earth enough to see things, you'd be looking back in the past, 48 minutes exactly. You'd be looking back 48 minutes, because that's how we're 48-minute light minutes away from Jupiter. And then if you could somehow get the reflection of that image from Earth, like a mirror on Jupiter, and look back, you'd be looking back in time. So this scientist has invented a way, using string theory and black holes and all this crazy stuff, to actually capture images from the Earth from deep space, from way down in space. So he can look back in time. But he's missing. He's disappeared with his invention.
Yeah.
And no one can find him. And this investigative journalist wants this story, and he's trying to track the guy down. And there's a lot of intrigue and suspense going on, because there's bad guys who are trying to discredit him. They don't want him to find the scientist because of graft and stuff going on with the company.
Sure.
And he ends up being wanted by the FBI for murder and sabotage and things like that. So while he's looking for the scientist, the FBI is looking for him. It's like kind of like it's kind of like The Fugitive meets Einstein kind of a book. So there's a lot of intrigue and suspense, but it's all based on science and just light and the whole thing about
Good
time.
healthy old sci-fi book. This came out.
This came out in 2016.
260. Okay, we're getting, now what's next?
I have two. I really publish 2 books a year.
Yeah.
So I published 8 books in the last 4
We're
years.
talking with Joseph Bebo, and he's an author with many books. So he didn't just bring one; he brought a lot.
This book is called Bach Again.
Yeah.
And it's
Bach Again.
It's inspired by my love of music. I was a music major in college, at Berklee School of Music, and I loved to write. And I love Bach. Bach was a revolutionary composer and keyboardist, man. And he changed the way people play piano and the way people listen to music. But there hasn't been anyone since Bach, or maybe Beethoven, a revolutionary type composer that's popular like these guys were. This book's about a 21st century composer, the first really modern composer who is big as Bach, like Leonard Bernstein cubed. He's really incredible. And he's coming out with this groundbreaking symphony, and it's going to revolutionize music, but he is going blind. And he doesn't know it, but someone is actually after him and poisoning him. They want to control his business, his music. And he's fighting to, get that symphony performed while someone's trying to sabotage him and poison him. And while he's struggling, he finds out that he's a clone.
My God, this guy's a busy
clone.
dude.
He finds out he's a human clone. Not only a clone,
Yeah.
but the clone of Johann Sebastian Bach.
There you go.
His father was a biologist in Scotland,
Yeah.
in Edinburgh, and they got the DNA of Bach and created this clone and brought him up just like Bach was, exposed him to. So he's an incredible musician, but he doesn't know he's a clone, and he finds out, and his world turns to chaos while he's trying to hide out from the bad guys.
See, Joe, you have so many ideas, so many interests, the music background and your interest in sci-fi and history. You've got all these things going for you. Wait till you see the rest of the books.
Well, these books
these are terrific.
Bubble up. I read something in science that inspired me and said, what would that be like? Or I have loved music, and I had a theory that I was going to write a book about Bach, that he was actually murdered. He didn't die of natural causes. He was actually murdered. But I had trouble carrying that through. So this kind of meshes the two into...
Joe, as we go along, people see a book they'd like. How can they reach you?
Well, you can get me on the internet at BeboJ01749 at AOL.com. BEBOJ at 01749 at AOL.com. You can write to me at P.O. Box 762 in Hudson, Mass. Or you can call me on the phone at 978-875-0260.
This is cool. Not many authors can you reach right on the phone, too. So if you have some ideas or there's something you've seen on the show today, don't be shy. All right, keep going.
I'd love to hear from you. I really would.
Here he goes. It's like Santa bringing them right out of his bag.
No, I was a computer programmer. I recently retired. But I program computers all around the area here. And this book is inspired by the next generation of computers, biological computers and quantum computers.
Stricken.
It's about a young female PhD, Linda Rayburn, who invented and programmed an incredible quantum computer. And the company she worked for basically stole her stuff and fired her. So she gets back at them by unleashing a computer virus into their system. But this virus is an actual plague germ.
Is this sort of like a sci-fi, too?
This is sci-fi. Again, this almost could happen. This stuff is not that far out. And so she's unleashed this plague. And the plague gets out on the internet. And the bubonic plague starts showing up. And the modern world isn't quite ready for this because they're looking at all the old vectors. And they were trying to catch it, but it keeps cropping up behind them because of the computers. And it's raging wild. And the only people that can stop the plague are dropout computer scientists and a hacker who's actually in prison in East Germany for his crimes. But they get together and they figure out where the plague is coming from, and they stop it.
Your books are very detailed. There's a lot of thought that goes into these.
Yes, I like to give you enough science where it makes it it makes it real. And
there's no fantasy in here. This is stuff that could happen.
It's stuff that could happen. Unfortunately, that would be a scary scenario.
So that came out maybe in
That came out in the fall of 2016.
Okay, fall 2016.
Now, 2017 was my year of horror.
Horror! Now he's in the horror genre. I love this.
I lived in a house in Boxborough once, and in front of the house was an old farmhouse. It looked much like this. It really looked much like this.
All right, this is right up my alley. The shivering.
You can have that.
Oh, thank you.
And I had a ghostly experience, a paranormal experience with my wife. Both of us heard a voice after going into the house. It was just an incredible experience. And anyway, that kind of inspired, that 10-minute little voice we heard kind of inspired the story. It's about a group of people who are into the occult and practicing past life recall and astral projection and things like that. And they're close to this old house that happens to be possessed by a very evil, powerful spirit.
Now, this isn't the house where you were at. This is another house.
This is another house. Yeah, that's an actual haunted house. I forget where we got that picture, but that's a real haunted house.
Yeah.
You notice how she got the darkness. I mean, the house just eats the light.
I love this.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
Elise Zielinski up in Plattsburgh, New York. If you need a book cover, she's great to talk to. So they do their occult too close, their exercises too close to the old house, and wake up the spirit. And she reaches out and starts to affect their lives in a terrible way. And the only person, again, one person who can save them, is the lead character, who's an ex-Marine carpenter.
Yeah.
He's only into the occult because he wants to meet girls.
Yeah.
He doesn't really believe in it, but he's in there and he finds it interesting. And strange things start to happen to all his friends.
Yeah.
And he hooks up with a librarian who happens to be a modern-day white witch.
Ooh.
So she helps him deal with all the things that are happening, and this ghost is so persistent.
Yeah.
She is really terrifying. She's unstoppable.
Was it someone who lived there at one point years ago?
There's a real house. The house I lived in, they told me that a woman had murdered 7 children in that house.
Oh, great. Oh, jeez.
That's what they told me.
The one you lived in?
The house in front of the building we lived in.
Oh.
After we heard the voice, we talked to our neighbors, and they said, "Oh, we talked to the landlord about that place.
Yeah.
It can't be torn down because it's a historical place." And they told me the story of the woman who killed the children there.
Oh.
And it's a scary story.
Yeah.
But I tried to. I don't know if they were just joshing me or not, but it was an interesting experience. So I turned that into a book and took it over the top.
Very much so. This came out in 2017.
Yeah.
Was that like January, February, something like
April.
that? April.
And you can have that. Let me sign it before we leave.
Alrighty. Okay, what next have we got coming?
Well, next we got an interesting book. This is a book about a vampire.
Ooh.
It's My Terrible Mistress, and it's told by the vampire's manservant.
My Terrible Mistress.
And this guy is the servant of the vampire. She's keeping him alive. He was born. He's about 100 years old. She's keeping him alive and fit. I won't tell you how she does it, but she's. And in this book, you can't vampires. It's a myth that vampires can create other vampires. That's nonsense. Otherwise, the world would be covered with them. It's the only way to create a vampire is through an ancient curse that's been lost for thousands of years.
Yeah.
And she's trying to find that curse so she can create more vampires. And she treats this poor servant, her slave, she treats him horrible. And he's trying to get out of his contract, trying to break the curse and get away from her. He can't.
He can't.
She's super powerful and smart and evil, pure evil.
Yeah.
So she's got his daughter, and he's really in a bind. So he's trying to get out of all this, and she makes him do. He has to clean up after her, which is crazy. And it takes a page from Anne Rice, because there were ancient vampires out there.
One of my favorite authors.
Yeah. And they have a problem because when she encroaches on another ancient vampire, she's the youngest of the vampires, the last one that was created from this curse and was lost.
Join him on a non-stop ride into madness and terror and learn what it is to be a servant of the damned. Now this is your horror. This is my horror,
and that's a very good selling book. They carry that at Totnock. If you look, do you recognize do you know Amber Doe?
She's the one, she works over there, right?
She works over there. She's a manager. And she morphed this out into a vampire for this book. And talk about a salesperson. She's great.
That's great. You can pick that up over at Totnock. All right.
Yeah. My latest book came out just this fall.
The latest one. And this is The Shot.
Just this spring, in April, in time for the Battle of Lexington and Concord.
Yep.
It's about the early days of the American Revolution in and around Boston.
Yeah.
And it's about a boy who gets in trouble and runs away.
Yeah.
And he falls asleep behind a stone wall. And the next morning he wakes up and to a bunch of yelling, a lot of noise. And he looks over the wall, and there were 100 British soldiers lined up on the green.
Yeah.
He'd never seen so many soldiers in his life. He always wanted to see British soldiers, but this was kind of troubling because they're standing there with their guns, and there's a bunch of patriots on the other end, militiamen. So he does something, a thoughtless act, an unthinkable act on impulse that changes his life. It changes the world. Mm-hmm. And before he knows it, he's caught up in this incredible war.
Yeah.
And he can't believe how people are reacting to what happened. He just can't believe it. And he's trying to tell people, hey, it's no one's fault. It was a joke. It was just a joke.
Yeah.
And he has all these adventures. He hooks up with the Queen Street Boys, who are a real group of boys in Boston during the siege, who got trapped outside of the city while their parents were trapped inside, and they became errand boys for the soldiers. And my character interacts with Paul Revere.
Yeah.
And Joseph Warren and all these great people.
Yeah.
And I try to bring them to life and maybe get a glimpse of how they really were.
This is another one of your, although it's, well, would you consider it historical fiction?
It's historical fiction, based on the facts. I was inspired by reading Philbrick's book, Nathaniel Philbrick's book.
Yeah.
And he really brought home to me, I took Battle of Lexington and Concord for granted. Bunker Hill I took for granted.
Yeah.
It's an incredible battle.
I think a lot of us we just learned it.
He was so much of it since we were in grade school. It was an incredible battle, and he brought home to me the real nature of that war and what a catastrophe it was, how it must have affected the people in the area, especially the young people.
We're talking with Joe Bebo, and he is an author of many books. We're just discussing many books, not just one today, many. Joe, again, how can people reach you?
I can be reached on the internet at BeboJ, BEBOJ 01749 at AOL.com. You can also mail me at P.O. Box 762 in Hudson, Mass. 01749. Or if you want to talk, I'd love to talk to you. Please call me at 978-875-0260. I'd love to hear from you.
Joe, where are you going to be appearing next?
Let's see. September 15th. I'm at the Church of the Nativity.
That's Sunday, right?
That's a Sunday.
Sunday.
At the church. No, it's a Saturday.
Saturday, the 15th? Okay.
I believe so.
Yeah.
At the Church of the Nativity in Northborough.
Okay.
From 12 to 4. That's on 45 Howard Street in Norwood. Then on the 29th of September, I'll be at the Maynard Fest in Maynard, Massachusetts, down in downtown Maynard, from 9 to 3:30. And then on October 21st, I'll be at the 37th annual Cornet Arts Fair in Acton, Mass. And then on the 27th of October, I'll be at the First Federal Church Mouse Fair in Hudson, Mass. And on the 29th, I already mentioned the 29th. And then on November 16th through the 18th, I'll be at the Festival of the Trees in Marlborough for 3 days.
That's a good thing. Now we've got a few minutes left. Write us through the rest of your books.
Well, all these books are fiction books.
Yeah.
And I do have one non-fiction book.
Yeah.
This is about my summer back in 1968.
And this is very popular right now. Joe is sharing me. Online, is it? People are getting this one?
People are finding this online.
In the back of the van, the story of one unforgettable summer.
It's a good seller. People like nonfiction books.
Yeah.
They like to read about real people. I mean, I love to write fiction, but people really like nonfiction books. So in the summer of 1968, while I was just finished my second year at Berklee College of Music,
Yeah.
I got a chance to play drums with Van Morrison.
Yeah.
He was 23 years old. He had just recorded Brown Eyed Girl, and he was in Boston with a lawyer trying to get out of his contract with Bang Records.
Did Van Morrison, did he overdose?
No, that's Jim Morrison. That's
Jim Morrison.
He used to go crazy when people mixed him up with Jim Morrison.
All right.
He had words for those people. He wasn't. He was Van Morrison, not Jim Morrison. And Brown Eyed Girl and Triple O Honey and Moon Dance, all those songs.
Oh.
So he was in town with a lawyer trying to get out of his contract with Bang Records. They screwed him. He didn't get any money, royalty payments for Brown Eyed Girl. And he couldn't record. He couldn't even approach another record company. So while he was in Boston, he got a band together, and I had the good fortune of playing with the band. So from the end of June, when school got out for the semester, to the end of August, when he went back to New York to record Astral Weeks, I worked with him every day, playing drums. We played the Boston Tea Party, where I saw Van tank for the first time. We played the Psychedelic Supermarket, where I saw Van blow up for the first time.
Yeah.
We played at Frank Conley's Carousel Theater, a big theater in the Round, where we opened for the association. Remember Cherish, the band Cherish?
Yeah, so you rode in the back of this van.
Yes, we went to the gigs and the van looked basically like that.
Yeah.
That was the back of the van. The van would come with us, and he'd tell us stories about them days and you know all the famous people he would dish. And Coming home, we do shots from a flask. It was really nice. He was a great guy. He was really down to earth.
You liked him.
I liked him. He was, and I wasn't crazy about his music. I was really into jazz. When I heard about the gig, I didn't even know who he was.
Yeah.
And then when my friend said, the guy who wrote Gloria, I said, oh no,
Whoa.
I hated that song.
Yeah.
It was like garage band music. I was above that. I was into jazz, and I was a hipster. So I wasn't too impressed with his music, but I brought my drums in addition for the job. He came over. He had a green velvet jacket on, shortish, longish red hair, sharp features. He reminded me of a little Beethoven type of guy.
Yeah.
And we started talking, and he knew a lot about jazz. I was so impressed. And over the time, as I worked with him, on stage I could never really hear him distinctly. Never knew what he was singing about. Never heard his lyrics. But over time, especially when we started recording, we finally got out of his contract with Bang Records. He was able to go back in the recording studio and make music for prospective writers. And here was this Van's on his threshold of showing his music to the world. And who does he bring in the recording studio with him? But the controversy, the name of the band was Controversy.
That was it?
Yeah, that was the name of the band.
How long did you do this gig?
3 months, from June to August. It was great.
We're going to wrap it up. But Joe Bebo has been with us, and we have gone through how many books?
9 books.
9.
I'm
Are you
coming out
going
with
to
another
donate any 1 or 2 or whatever down to the downstairs so people can read? Or?
Sure. I'd like to leave the shot down there.
Sure.
That's my newest book.
Yeah.
And I'd love to leave that down there. And I'd like to give you the ghost book, The Shivering.
Yeah,
the
that's
name
great.
of the ghost book.
Ooh, I love that. Paranormal Lockdown is one of my favorite shows. Love that show. It's only 2 people. It's not that one Ghost Adventures where it's all drama and they're acting.
They're putting it on.
But that Paranormal Lockdown that hasn't been... we're waiting for season 3, but anyway, it's only 2 people who take it very seriously, and they're locked down for 72 hours in these asylums and places like this, and I love it.
No, I wouldn't do that.
Joe, got a new book coming up before we close?
Yes, I have a new book I'm working on. It'll be coming out in October, called Altered Realities.
Haunted Realities?
Altered. The changed reality.
Okay.
Altered reality.
Yeah.
And it's about holograms, virtual reality, nanotechnology, and artificial intelligence.
What a way to blend a book.
And they all come together where the line between virtual reality and reality is...
Now you say you write 2 books a year, so that will be the first one of this year?
This would be that would be the second one this year.
The second one of this year. And then starting in 2019, you're going to have 2 coming up then, too.
2 coming up there. A nonfiction book about a young man I know who just passed away, 21 years old. He was severely disabled, special needs kid, and he had an exceptional, wonderful life. He touched so many people, this kid. So it's an incredible, inspiring story. I don't write stories like this, I really don't. But I know these people very good.
This will mean a lot to them.
Well, not only that, but they were exceptional. I always felt kind of bad for them because I know how difficult it is. The kid couldn't talk, couldn't communicate. He had to do everything for him. But they took him everywhere. And they were exceptional parents and made this kid's life really special. So that'd be
so that's coming up. Joe, thanks again, and let us know when your next one's coming out.
Yes, I'll be happy to come by and show it to you.
So this guy is a smorgasbord author. I mean, everything from paranormal to the Civil War, sci-fi,
Revolutionary War.
It's Revolutionary War, sci-fi.
That's all over the place. They tell you not to do that.
No, that's okay. No, I like this.
Love it.
This is cool because you're drawing on every single thing, even the music, his background at Berkeley. You're drawing on it. Thank you,
absolutely.
Joe. We'll see you next time and be my guest.
Thank you.